Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Aion 2 video. Thank you so much for your support on my last video. I think it really got a lot of attention and I'm really thankful for that. And yeah, today we are going to talk a little bit more about the Sorcerer. There are some things we now know more about the class. We have learned more things about gear. Things about which stats are important on your gear. So yeah, let's talk about it. Again, I will try to make timestamps for people who just want to skip to some specific section, check it out. For the rest, yeah, let's start with some general things about skills and skill point distribution. You can now see, compared to my last video, there's a few more changes I've done. A lot more skill points are generally obtained, so we have a lot more skills up to high levels. I have the flame arrow, which is now on level 16, which is quite one of the important ones. Somehow I even got the bitter cold wind up to level 17. So that's quite good. And you will notice in my last video I was saying that the frost skills are not really that useful, and that has changed now. And let me talk about it. So there is the cold snap, which we already knew about in the last video. It's not really that good. It has a 1-second cooldown, but the chance is 50%. And so weaving in some frost skills in between your general attacks will help you to pull off more damage. And one thing I've also done is on the winter shackles, I've chosen the 20% damage tolerance, which is similar to the delayed explosion. So this one is not only dealing some pretty decent damage, it's also helping you to knock down the defense of the boss, so your teammate and yourself can deal more damage. And down here you will already notice that I've also did a different layout for my skills here, and you see that all my ice skills are pretty much on one button. That's a pretty good way to combo, because this one you can just like press one button and get it out. The skills, I've got this from one of our sorcerers in the Aion 2 Discord who has it that way, and I tried it out and it really works just great, because this way you will always have Frost Burst as the priority to trigger, and it will just always work in that priority order. I have nothing on 2 because 2 is right above W, and if you want to keep moving around, you're mostly likely going to hold down W, and you can still press like 1 and 3, but pressing 2 is a little bit more difficult. That is why I have nothing on 2, and on 3 is the Ice Chain. 4 and 5 are the buffs. C is the delayed explosion. V is the Lumial Space. I've used a Lumial Space level 10 now instead of Glacial, and that is quite a big change. I know in last video I said Glacial was really good, and it is not bad, but the damage is simply not scaling that well, and if you put 10 points into it, it's just not that great. And the second thing is why I did it is because I also wanted to play some PvP. Now, Lumial Space is quite good for PvP, and it does decent amount of damage in PvE. Once you get it to level 10, you get the combo skill, which deals some significant damage. And yeah, you simply prevent having to respec for 300,000 every time you try to PvP, because this is simply useful in both. It's also an AoE spell around you, which will delete trash mobs quite well, and this way, if I want to play PvP, I leave the level 10 skills and I simply have to only switch the Divine Burst and the Elemental buff just in case, in some cases, for the Silence. And usually I'm running the Arctic Armor right now, but I don't think it's the best choice. Tree is pretty bad, and that's quite a big problem because the basic resistance of tree is so bad, but we already talked about that in the last video. So the only significant change here is the Lumial Space, which is the only guaranteed CC that we have pretty much, and it now says 75% chance. I'm not quite sure if it wasn't 100% before, but it now says this is 100% on NPCs. But that fixed 75% chance is at least a lot better than the, I think it's like 20 or 30% chance for the tree, and that one is just single target. So this one is a lot more reliable. So that was that about the skills, and now I wanted to show you how that will play out in the rotation. So if you want to do a big burst rotation, what you want to do is pretty much pop your buffs, and you start with the ice skills up close before putting in the delayed explosion and going into Hellfire. And yeah, that pretty much looks like this then. And now you can just weave in your frost skills whenever they come up, pretty much. You can sometimes also weave in an ice chain. You see it's quite getting comfortable with the flow of battle. If you have more combat speed, it will help. For example, if I will pop now the superior courage scrolls, that will make it significantly more smooth, probably. And then if your buffs are already up again, you can go again. And you will notice another change I did is I am not using the multi-hit on Hellfire anymore. I'm using the Flame Zone. And the reason I did this is that the multi-hit on Hellfire is pretty bad, to be honest. I would change it to the multi-hit and ignore block and evasion if you're going PvP. But for PvE, the Flame Zone is simply superior because the multi-hit is really only doing like minuscule damage. And we can see that in the chat over here. This here is the multi-hit, the 333 damage procs. That are the multi-hits. Okay, it's a crit now, but you get the idea. The Flame Zone does a lot more dot damage over time, as you can see, if you scroll through there. And even if the boss walks or dashes out of the zone, even if it's just a few first hits of the Flame Zone, it will deal more damage than the multi-hit, for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much it about the rotation. You can weave in your ice skills in between to proc some cold snap damage. But anything other than that, it's still going to be primarily spamming your flame arrows, your firestorm, and your blaze, and pretty much get up the Hellfire whenever it's ready. You gotta be careful with the ice skills, they are close range. They are very close range. So let's talk about gear then for a moment. You can see I am already at a gear score of 2360, so I'm quite good off. I was also very lucky, I have to say. I have already 2 orange gear pieces equipped, and I had a second pants that was unbound that I could sell on the market for a good amount of Kina, and which I turned into Kuna. Which is a thing you can only do if you have premium, of course. But yeah, that one paid off quite well. You can see I've got this pretty outfit now, which I also recolored with the Kuna I made. And bought a bit of other stuff. I think I got the battle passes now too, yeah. The point about gear is the soulbinding raids. These are the tricky thing, because these are random, but they are always fixed. And you want to have the good things on that, because there are stats that are good and there are bad. Emilyheartz from the Discord made a pretty good overview of all these stats that are good and that are bad, and compiled them into a spreadsheet. I will link that spreadsheet down below, but in essence, natural MP regen, for example, is horrible. Natural HP regen is horrible. Stats you are looking for are things like attack, critical attack, but even better is might. On gloves you are looking for combat speed. The weapon can have combat speed as well. Combat speed is really, really, really good. Combat speed is one of the most important stats for the mage, because it simply makes all your projectiles go out faster. You're attacking a lot faster. Which in turn, of course, means more DPS. And yeah, so how do you change those stats? Now, if you go into the soulbinding menu, you have this first option, which is the bind, which is to increase the stats you already have. It will not give you more than 100%, so you can't get 2 skill points. It will only enhance the stats like attack and critical attack, as you can see. Then you have the full reset. If all your stats on the item are terrible, but you want to keep the item, then you can do a reset, and they cost you these Soul Codex resets, which are pretty hard to come by. These are rare and therefore valuable items. You really want to make good choices with them. I don't think I did a lot of good choices with them. I burned a lot of them already, and I'm now realizing that I probably have done that too early. So keep those around for, yeah, dire times. I think I resetted my orange pants, which cost 5 of these twice, and then I got the lucky free skill thing. And this one is the most important option. This one is the sync. And syncing allows you to re-roll one stat of the thing, of whatever item you're having. One stat can be re-rolled into all the options you have. Now, the success chance of re-rolling depends on the item level, and it has to be gold at least anyway, so that's not making much of a difference. But if you're, for example, trying to roll an orange item with a gold item, the chance will be lower than 100%. But as long as you're using the same grade, it usually is 100% if the item level is not far apart. But that way you can re-roll single stats. So if we have, for example, the natural HP regen and we want to get rid of that, we need a golden gear piece of equivalent level. I don't think it has to be equivalent level. I think level 50 still works with 100%, but then you can re-roll stats. And that's a pretty much important thing. Another thing I want to say is don't waste your gold and upgrades on the runes. You will get plenty of the runes, but these are pretty much what was the plumes in Aion 1. They are designed to burn through your enchantment materials in Kina. They are not worth to try to get to a high level. Keep them on +3 and +4. It is just a sink for your upgrade materials. I would upgrade everything else first before you try to get these higher than anything reasonable. And I've also, as you can see, most of my things are +10. I usually just enchant to +10 because beyond that it goes into the RNG enchantments, and you can burn a lot of Kina and enchantment materials there as well. Once you have everything on +10, you can start rolling for higher, or if you have really good equipment that you think is going to last you a long time, then you can spend that. For example, I have here like the Bakama boots, and now I'm starting to run Wakron Island. I'm not going to spend any Kina on RNG upgrades trying to push this even higher. I simply swap it out, get and the enchantment stones you get back, but you don't get the Kina back, and Kina is pretty much, that's the limiting factor. That's why the only pay-to-win we have right now in Aion is buying Kina. That's the way you get to progress. That's the way you can skip ahead. But you still have decent amount of income from Kina if you start running the high dungeons. You get like 600k per dungeon, so that's working out quite fine. And yeah, I'm also doing a lot of crafting. Crafting is great in Aion as well, so if you are crafting, and for example, I'm doing a lot of alchemy, and you have to get the proc rate to get to the next stage, pretty much. You have to get the 25% proc to get to the next stage. So if it fails, you're left with an undesirable item, so to speak, but it's not that terrible because you can turn them in often in the emergency trade-ins or in the weekly trade-ins. And beyond that, also in the crafting trade-ins. As you can see, I've done quite a few already. And that is a good way to come by some Abyss points without having to do like PvP. So crafting really is rewarding for both PvE and PvP because the gear is also quite good once you're getting into the higher stages. It's requiring a lot of materials, a lot of items to craft all that, so you have to spend a lot of time gathering, or you have to spend your Kina on buying the materials, which I would not recommend. I would always recommend you to farm the items yourself. That way you get by a lot of other important things as well, because if you're farming the items yourself, you're killing a lot of mobs, and if you're killing a lot of mobs, you're getting your pets high, which means you're getting your genus inside high, which means you're getting more stats. And if you're farming a lot of mobs, you're farming a lot of skins, and if you get a lot of skins, then you get your skin collection high up, and that one is going to give you a lot of stats as well. Everything in Aion 2 is based around collections. That is really important to note, because I think a lot of people don't know this. Collecting skins gives you defense or attack stats for your weapons. It gives you attack stats for your accessories. It gives you defense stats for your armor. Collecting all the wings is stacking. You have one equip effect of the wings you are wearing, and you have an owned effect and collection effect. And that you find under all the applied effects, you find all the owned effects. These are all the effects you will have by simply having collected the wings. So you already see a lot of the things in Aion are about collecting things. That's why I recommend you to farm items and materials instead of buying them, because that way you are simply doubling down on getting stats. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I still sadly cannot talk much about PvP. I got my PvP weapon yesterday now. The reason I've not done much PvP yet is that the class balance seems to be really off. I've heard this of a lot of people. I've tried some, and in group PvP it's really fine. If you have people that you can stay behind or that can peel for you, that you can attack from the range. The 8 versus 8 is kind of fun. That one is quite good, but 1 versus 1 is a shit show. The class imbalance is terrible. There are classes that are clearly dominating, and there are classes that are pretty much a free kill. So it also feels very unsatisfying. I have to say that I'm not quite happy with the PvP. It's because of the CCs being very much RNG based. Here it all feels extremely random, extremely dice rolled. There's not a lot of skill going on. It's all about your gear and if you're lucky. And that feels not very satisfying to play right now. I don't think my ping is a big issue here, because the ping still feels quite smooth in PvP, but it's simply the way the combat is designed. It feels like they have not thought about PvP at all. Sorcerer has like 0 mobility skills aside from the regular dashes that every other class has as well. But melee classes can dash at you like 3-4 times a gladiator or assassin. They can jump on you again and again and again. You won't get away. The Templar will pull you again and again and again. You won't get away. Kiting is impossible. So this feels really terrible from a balancing point. But we will see what they come up with in the future and how they will work things out, and perhaps it might get a little bit better with some more knowledge too. I don't think that it's like completely useless, but it feels really in an undesirable spot. For PvE though, Sorcerer is definitely top tier. I'm quite sure about that Sorcerer is dealing a significant amount of damage. It's dealing a significant amount of the stagger. It's really vital to proc the stagger on bosses in late game, where you have to break their attack before they can wipe the party, for example. So that feels really good. But in PvP, it's a bit rough. Anyways, if you have any other wishes for videos I should make, if you should go a little bit more in depth about some dungeon mechanics or some content that you can do in game that you maybe have not known about, or if you want to see me doing some of the nightmare dungeons, that's the solo content, how I'm dealing with that with Sorcerer, yeah, leave a comment down below. I'm looking forward to your comments again, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye bye.